Is moving to Thailand still worth it in 2026? If you listen to the internet, the narrative can sound fairly bleak at times. Prices are rising, visa rules are constantly changing, and every week there seems to be another video claiming Thailand has changed. But while there's truth in the claims, the narrative can be misleading, and it's often rooted in a generational divide, as many of the loudest voices on the topic are people who moved here years or even decades ago. And those voices are amplified by AI slop content lamenting how Thailand has changed. And the truth is that they aren't wrong. Thailand has changed a lot over the years. It's more modern, interconnected, and convenient. And with that, it can also be more expensive than it used to be. But that's because there are far more layers of experiences with high-end restaurants, rooftop bars, condos, malls, and virtually anything you'd find in your home country. But you'll still find very affordable local shops, restaurants, and apartment buildings. There's a lot more variation on offer today, and with that, a far wider range of prices. Personally, I love the dynamism of a city like Bangkok, and for many people, it's exactly what makes the city so appealing. And here's where you need to consider the source of the negative online chatter about change, because there's a very common cycle for expats. The first few years are typically characterized as the rose-colored glasses phase, when everything is novel, unique, and exciting. But as the years pass, the glasses come off and people develop more nuanced views of their adoptive home, while some become very critical. And here's where Thailand receives a disproportionate amount of negative attention, as the country has a far larger long-term expat and repeat visitor population than a country like Vietnam, where most of the commentary is still from relative newcomers. And the simple reality is that people anywhere in the world tend to look back on their earlier years as the good old days. If you talk to someone who arrived in 2006, they'll tell you that was the best time, before Thailand changed. Whereas someone who arrived in 2016 will often say exactly the same thing. And if you arrive in 2026, there's a good chance that 10 years from now, you'll be telling people about the good old days too. So my advice is to ignore negativity online and test out living in multiple places and see what feels best for you. And for me, Bangkok stands out in particular as it has become a very modern, global metropolis at an excellent price point. It was fantastic in 2015 when I first arrived. It's changed a lot since that time, and it's still a great place to live today. And there is an important caveat here, because the biggest shifts have largely been concentrated in Bangkok and in major tourism hubs like Phuket. But those places aren't necessarily representative of the country as a whole. If you prefer a slower pace of life, lower prices, and far fewer foreigners, regions like Isan in the northeast can offer a completely different experience. And in many ways, this mirrors the pattern you see almost everywhere in the world, where major cities and tourism centers tend to become the most globalized, commercialized parts of a country. And within Thailand, there are still many very different lifestyles to choose from in 2026. You have a fully globalized metropolis in Bangkok, more internationalized expat and tourist hubs like Phuket, the calmer pace of Chiang Mai, or regional cities like Khon Kaen that can feel like stepping back in time. The choice is ultimately yours, but one thing is certain: nothing ever remains the same, and the process of modernization is still continuing, and the country will likely look very different over the next 10 years, especially with infrastructure improvements. Bangkok's transit network is set to expand significantly over the coming years, with the addition of major projects like the MRT Orange Line and the Purple Line extension, while additional routes like the Brown, Grey, and Silver lines are planned for later phases of expansion. While both Phuket and Chiang Mai are developing light rail systems with long-term completion targets around the early 2030s. Major road projects throughout the country will improve the flow of traffic. And then there's also the long-delayed high-speed 250 km/h rail project linking Bangkok with Pattaya, with a projected completion date around 2032. Which is planned alongside 3 other high-speed lines spanning the entire country. And yet, despite the rapid modernization, there's still a greater sense of personal freedom than in many Western countries. One of the areas where that becomes very apparent is healthcare, as it's typically far easier to see a specialist without initial doctor visits. And many medications that would require multiple appointments in Western countries can be obtained directly at pharmacies over the counter, while specialized clinics for hormone replacement therapy are easily accessible. Just make sure to check in with a specialist prior to using any medication. But one aspect of life here that can be more challenging is work and income. Most professions are restricted to Thai nationals only, and that policy is unlikely to change anytime soon, as the government has always been quite protective of the domestic labor market. And for most Westerners, it's generally better to build a remote or online income to support living in the country. But if you don't have an online income and simply want to get your feet on the ground with a job, teaching English is a good option. It's relatively easy to find a teaching job in Thailand, and websites like ajarn.com tend to have the largest number of listings. And the best approach is to wait until after you arrive and simply apply for jobs directly. Interviews are normally in person at the school, and this will help you avoid any scams, and you can assess the work environment directly. I have a full guide on teaching in Thailand which covers the topic in far greater detail, so I'll include a link to that in the description. And unfortunately, there aren't any planned changes to labor law or potential agreements between Thailand and any Western country. But you can find very well-paid jobs at international schools and in the hotel and hospitality management sectors if you have the appropriate qualifications and experience. But if you opt for a digital nomad path, one thing you'll need to figure out is taxes. And there isn't any simple, one-size-fits-all advice here. If you reside in Thailand for more than 180 days within a calendar year, technically you're considered a tax resident, but there's often a lot of confusion about taxes on income that is brought into the country. And my recommendation is to consult a qualified tax professional with experience in international and Thai taxation. Now, before we wrap things up, I just want to briefly explain the format of these videos. Every month, I make a post asking viewers to submit questions about Thailand. In my last Q&A request, I received nearly 80 questions, and I split those up into 4 videos. Travel and tourism advice, current events, this one about moving to Thailand, and we have an upcoming video about dating. I'll post another request soon, so if you have a question, make sure to ask here. And as always, let us know your thoughts in the comment section and whether you're considering moving to Thailand. Have a great day, and I'll see you next time.